the idea of painting aspiring, as it were, to the condition of poetry was something that Spencer seemed to have, and which allowed his paintings to kind of encompass a sort of spiritual dimension that had almost sort of disappeared from the rest of sort of modernist painting. I have to say, I always rather hate it when artists start talking about their work. I always rather wish they'd just sort of shut up and let the pictures talk for them. But what I thought I could do is maybe talk a little bit about my relationship with Spencer. Because when I was a student at the Royal Academy, the studios in those days were you could only get to them through a kind of little door that opened in what was the old library, which took you down into the studios. But it meant that we students at lunchtime could come up and see the exhibitions, whatever we were getting to free into all the exhibitions that were happening in the Academy galleries. And while I was a student there, the two exhibitions that really had a powerful effect on me was there was a huge sort of Chagall retrospective, and then there was a huge Stanley Spencer retrospective. And I must have seen Spencer's pictures before, but I'd never really certainly seen them en masse before then. And the two pictures that were right at the beginning of that exhibition were this one here of the John Donne appearing in heaven, and the one behind you of the Last Supper. And they had a very powerful effect on me. I'm going to say something right at the beginning there, that my first reaction to Spencer was that he was doing exactly what I wanted to do, but was doing it exactly this is what I thought as a student, in exactly the wrong way. And I was trying to think about what actually I meant by that. But I suppose the thing that I really responded to at first in Spencer is what you might call the poetry of his pictures. I mean, Spencer was actually, though he had some strange education, he was a great little reader and wrote sort of poetry all his life. And there was something in his pictures that it was the kind of painting that you might, the idea of painting aspiring, as it were, to the condition of poetry was something that Spencer seemed to have, and which allowed his paintings to kind of encompass a sort of spiritual dimension that had almost sort of disappeared from the rest of sort of modernist painting. There were exceptions like Chagall, but they were quite rare exceptions. And like Spencer, very clearly an early 20th century painter, had managed to channel something that had been going on in European painting all for 2,000 years and make it fresh and new. And so that was something that I really responded to. So this picture of Johnny Donne appearing in heaven was a testimony, partly. I mean, Spencer at the time had been reading Donne's sermons, but also reading his poetry. It's a very sort of fresh and interesting sort of picture of Donne. And the picture that I put beside it was, Spencer did this when he was still a student at the Surrey, and this was a painting that I did when I was at the Academy. And I was sort of taking a line of, it's called Ash Wednesday, it comes from T.S. Eliot's poem Ash Wednesday, where it has this extraordinary line, ladies through like leopards sat under a juniper tree, and he imagines himself as the sort of dry bones from Ezekiel, which the leopards had devoured, and then he was wondering whether he could be revived by the spirit. And so it was this is pairing the pictures in a sort of good way to sort of start the exhibition, because in a way it was that sort of poetic aspect of Spencer where I did respond to. What I suppose I didn't respond to at the time was what seemed to me the kind of what I rudely described as a sort of faux primitivism of Spencer. And in a way that was perhaps unfair, because it was something that was happening throughout early modernist pictures of these kind of serious cartoons, as it were, of doing things. He was very much sort of channeling sort of Giotto in that, and also in that sort of later picture. But it was a way of sort of pretending to be naive, rather than not exactly being naive. And in fact, that when that's really inhabited, as I think it is in these two pictures, in fact it works in a very profound way. I think it can, and I think it quite often it does in one of those pages, become something of a sort of mannerism when it's just, when it doesn't, it's not really inhabited in that deep way. And perhaps that was what I was disliking. And when I think I first saw that picture, I don't think I couldn't understand what the feet were doing as having this sort of prominent thing. It just seemed to be almost sort of flippant. But I hadn't realised that actually he was painting the washing of the disciples' feet and the sort of preparation for that. And so, in fact, it's an extraordinary, I can't think of any other painting of the Last Supper, really, that actually takes the feet washing as the sort of central part. But actually, in John's Gospel, it is the central sort of aspect almost of the Last Supper that is sort of hugely important there. And I don't actually know whether Spencer ever wrote about that. I can't remember, perhaps anyone else does it. But clearly he was just seeing it in the Gospels and just painting it. And that was something I think that sort of gave it a sort of real power and meaning and originality, and making the stories fresh. I think it was probably when I saw the sort of Cookham resurrection that I first really realised what a great painter Spencer was. And again, it was locating the sort of traditional stories in that sort of setting here in Cookham that makes it so powerful. I mean, people I'd sometimes say, of my paintings, that when I'm locating these sort of stories in the contemporary settings, that I, as it were, try to make the stories relevant. When I was growing up, people used to talk about trendy vicars doing that and trying to make things relevant. Well, in a way, I sort of understand what they're saying, but I don't think it even begins to touch what certainly for me the pictures are trying to do, because this idea of actually depicting Christ in the world around us, or the stories, the biblical stories in the world around us, is something that's been part of sort of Christian art right from the very beginning, right from the very earliest Christian art. And in a sense, it's because the idea of the incarnation, of the Word becoming flesh and living among us, is actually all Christian art is in a sense recapitulating that on some sort of scale. And trying to make that part of the painting. And in fact, I would say that that has been part of all Christian painting for the last 2,000 years almost. But it is also, you might say, that the whole of Western art, and because Western art has now become a kind of global phenomenon. All art, you might say, is kind of now sort of downstream of that idea. I'm not going to expound that thesis at the moment because I've been writing a book about it for the last 7 years and taking off in a different direction. But I think that's I would strongly defend that as being true. Anyway, the pictures that I've got here, the walking on water was in the sort of the Battersea power station in the background. I mean, that is, though I didn't actually realise at the time, is almost directly the figures of Peter and Christ there echo what is actually the earliest depiction of Christ that is known, which is in the church in Dura-Europos. Which is Christ and Peter walking on water. And so this kind of painting does in fact have a very long history, and Spencer was absolutely a part of that. I haven't actually, I mean, Spencer himself didn't do many, I don't know if he really did any pictures directly for churches, though some of his pictures were exhibited in the church here. And he would, I think, would have longed to that should have been to do more of that, but he was never, partly because of his very sort of individual approach. He was never actually commissioned in that way. But what has been same for me. The only exception is the picture you can just see by the window here. That's a design for. The window in the church in Oxford. I've got a window opposite a John Frankel window, and this was the sort of cartoon I did for that window, which is there. I also there done an altar cloth and font cover and chosen it as well. But that's the only big church commission that I've done.
Apart from St Matthew's.
Apart from St Matthew's, that's absolutely true, yes. No, the mosaic, which is more recent. But what I first tried to do, and what Spencer tried to do, is to locate spiritual experiences within contemporary, the world that we're actually living in. So that Spencer thought of the high street here as the nave of a church, and conceived this kind of idea of what he called church house, which was in his mind, but he sort of put his in pictures of all aspects of his life within this kind of this sort of frame of the church. And so some of the pictures, well, you can just sort of see upstairs there, one of those is the burning fiery furnace, which is set in the Lucid Ironworks in Oxford. And again, this was a society of many paintings that I've done, but also of poems that have been related to the painting. So this one was I'll just read you two poems now. This is when I saw Seraphim. About this picture. So it is, I saw the seraphim one summer's night, leaping seemed a field of endless wheat. I heard their voices through the fading light, wild, strange, and yet intolerably sweet. The hour such beauty first was born on earth, the dawn of sifting had that day begun. For some who not endure love's second birth, preferring their darkness to that sun. And still love's sun must rise upon our light, for nothing can be hidden from its feet. And in that summer evening's fading light, I saw these angels gathering the wheat, like beaten gold. Their beauty smote the air, and tongues of flame were streaming in their hair. The most recent picture in the exhibition carries on this sort of theme of using industrial images in that way. When Claire Richard asked me to do a picture about the apocalypse, the book of Revelation, which was a challenge because I at first couldn't see how it's possible to do an image that would encompass so much that you get at that great book at the end of the Bible. And it was only when I remembered many years ago, I was one winter, I was travelling across from Suffolk to Wales and past the Port Talbot Steelworks, and it was the evening, and the lights of the sort of steelworks, the lights of huge industrial sort of city, were reflected in the water in front of it, and I, just remembering that began to give me an image of how you could depict the great themes in Revelation of Babylon and the New Jerusalem as kind of mirror images of each other. So I'll just end by reading this kind of gave rise to a poem. The picture, the final picture, as you may have heard, is a great sort of big thing. You can only just about pick out some of the details, but the poem will perhaps give you an idea of what is actually going on in the picture. The poem is called Sacred Allegory. I travelled roads from east to west and passed a mighty city where 1,000 arc lights lit the ground and smoking chimneys choked the air. I saw there, in a prophecy, as an unending city-state, an empire that engulfed the world. Its name was Babylon the Great. In that great city no birds sing, and in its streets no seed can flower. Its iron forges frame a world whose only currency is power. There none know what they serve or why, or with their choices what they choose. But each choice is a zero sum, where if I win, then you must lose. And that iron law twists every choice and binds each soul with chains of iron. Its walls of iron ring every land and seal off every road to Zion. But standing there upon a shore, I thought I saw the Lamb of God, a sacrifice already slain, with whitest wool stained red with blood. And as I saw that powerless lamb had suffered all that power could do, a breath of life breathed through the lamb by which the whole world was made new, as with forgiveness, mercy, grace, the math of zero sum unwound. From wretched captives, naked, blind, the chains of iron fell to the ground. Not iron, but angels held their hand, as stepping by a crystal sea, within a figured dance they find an order in which all are free. Then all equations were reversed. The Lamb of God became a lion. The walls of iron were broken down, and pilgrims thronged the paths of Zion. And mirrored in that crystal sea, I saw the New Jerusalem, its walls and trees and shining towers, both here and now, and still to come.